What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff with Living in Arizona, and today I'm going to tackle the question of is should I go to Utah or Arizona or to live, visit, and I mean that's all going to come up to your opinion on what you really are looking for, right? But we're going to go ahead and address this subject and we're going to open it up based on opinions from across the internet, people I've talked to, my own self, and we're just going to put it all into one. So, both are very beautiful and they share an interesting area along the border, and that's like the Lake Powell area. So right there where Lake Powell is, south you have Monument Valley. Over towards the west you have the Grand Canyon, and you have like Horseshoe Bend, and you have Petrified Forest, Canyon de Chelly. You go south into Tucson or Flagstaff. North, if you go north of the Arizona border, you come up into Zion National Park, Arches National Park. There's just so many different beautiful things in that little area, and it's kind of split in between the border of Arizona and Utah. So you'd probably want to go to both, right? See both. So that's the area where most people want to visit. Now the big cities are pretty far away, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours away from that region. Like Phoenix is about 3 to 4 hours from there, and Salt Lake City is maybe 2 to 3 hours away from Zion National Park or Arches, and just that area right there. But the two big cities, if we just compare Salt Lake City and Phoenix together, right? What do we need to know about that? Well, for one, Salt Lake City really has 4 seasons. Okay, Phoenix has, like right now we're getting a little bit of a cold spell here in Phoenix where it's dropping below freezing at night, but Salt Lake City gets a true 4 seasons. Like it really gets 4 seasons, kind of like Denver. Now, one of the things that you'd want to know about Salt Lake City is it doesn't have that urban sprawl that Phoenix has. Phoenix can grow outwards because all they got to do is knock over some cactuses and a couple shrubs, and then they just keep sprawling out. In Salt Lake City, they've got mountains on both sides, or one side and the lake on the other side, so they can't really keep sprawling like they do here in Arizona. You've got Provo to the north, and you've got stuff like that, but for the most part, it's more densely populated in Salt Lake City. So if you don't mind the urban sprawl, Phoenix would have that, but if you do want to be a little bit more densely populated, Salt Lake City has that. Now, if we were to talk about just the populations of the two, right? You have the population of Salt Lake City is 192,000 as of 2010. Phoenix is 1.5 million. Now, that means Salt Lake City has more people in the metro area than 192,000, because that's not even the size of Mesa, right? So, how many people live in Salt Lake City? Let me get that for you real quick. And so while we get those results, so there's 200,000 people in Salt Lake City, but in the metro area, there's 1.1 million, right? So, I mean, Salt Lake City is actually smaller than Boise if you're just talking about Salt Lake City. But those are the two big cities, one in Utah, one in Phoenix, right? Now, like I said, Phoenix has that urban sprawl. Salt Lake City is a little bit more densely populated. And for the most part, it seems like the more conservative you are, the more you're going to like the conservatism of Utah and Salt Lake City. Utah, because it's very Mormon based, it has a more conservative values. Like they're not as lenient on some of the things that they are in Phoenix. Like the party culture in, say, Arizona or Phoenix in particular is a little bit more amplified than it would be in Salt Lake City or Utah. Utah is a lot more conservative in that way. So older conservative people tend to lean more towards, hey, Utah, Salt Lake City seems a little bit more their area, right? Whereas Phoenix tends to favor more younger people who are a little bit more outgoing and excitable, right? If we're just talking about the cost of living, for example, if we're just talking about food, groceries, Phoenix is a little bit more expensive than Salt Lake in terms of groceries. Housing is more expensive in Salt Lake, considerably more expensive in Salt Lake. So if you're a homeowner, expect to pay more for your home in Salt Lake, and that's just because of the lack of room out here. They just keep sprawling out. Medium home cost in Salt Lake is $354,000, in Phoenix is $229,000. So that just puts that into perspective. Utilities a little bit more in Arizona though. Transportation, expect to do a little bit more driving in Phoenix than you would in Salt Lake because of that sprawl. Healthcare about the same, a little bit more expensive in Salt Lake or Utah. And so that kind of puts things into perspective with that. Now, we just talked about some of the places that you can go. We haven't really touched on Bryce Canyon, but we touched on those different areas in that region. So if you're into the outdoors, Phoenix, the thing that I think puts Arizona over Utah, number one, is we're closer to the beaches. Like you can get to the beach, the nice beaches, the warmer beaches, Mexico and Southern California, in a short drive than you can from Utah, right? But also, we have that same kind of climate that you can get in Salt Lake, in Prescott, in Payson, in Sedona. That's the same kind of climate. So, but you would be more centrally located, or you'd be more located to a big metropolis like Phoenix, should you need to go down to like a place like the airport in Sky Harbor, 2 hours away from Sedona, right? So, I mean, you can get the best of both worlds in Phoenix or in Arizona, whereas you can only get really that kind of 4-season. You can't get that like outstanding 300 days of sunshine or 300 plus days of sunshine in Utah like you can in a place like Phoenix or in a place like Tucson, say, right? So that's kind of an interesting point to observe. But I think overall, if you're more conservative, you're going to prefer Utah. If you're more a free spirit, outgoing, you're a little bit of a socialite and you like to, you love sunshine and really getting out on the water, you're probably going to lean towards wanting or considering Phoenix or even anywhere in Arizona, really. So I hope this helps clear up some questions about that. But one thing that I will say is there are more males in Salt Lake City than there are females. So that Arizona has more females than it does males, but there's actually there's a 3% difference between males and females in Utah. So or Salt Lake has actually a younger median age. So there's more young people. The people are younger in Salt Lake than they are in Phoenix, but I think that's just interesting. But then again, yeah, Phoenix is 4 to 5 times larger than Salt Lake City. I mean, it's that big, right? So if you guys have any other questions, let me know. Drop a comment below. Thanks to everyone who's been liking these videos, subscribing to Living in Arizona, and I can put out more videos like this or answer some more questions. Now that the holidays are over, I'll be back in the saddle and in full swing. So I hope to hear from you guys and see you guys next time.